tonight. This is, fortunately or unfortunately, our last of our sessions that we had here. I'm sure everyone's had a great time, including myself and Linda. But let's start out with a special thanks to Bruce Burke and Kevin Orr for being here every week to videotape the presentations. We will be selling sets of history talks on DVD. Please sign up at the front table if you're interested in these. The nominal cost is $15 for a set of 8 DVDs. Please note that there is a 30-second delay on each DVD, and we will call you when they are ready, and you can pay for them and pick them up at City Hall. Also, there will be a 100th anniversary of the Student Adult Art Show the week of the celebration, with a reception in the City Courtroom Sunday, July 24th. Please stop in during that week to view all the creativity we have in Sherrill. The show will be open from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. each evening. Also, when you came in, the Mansion House has these handout sheets of some events that are taking place at the Mansion House in the months of July and August. So grab one of these peach-colored sheets on your way out. We have our final 2 speakers this evening. We will introduce the speaker who will give their presentation. Please save questions and comments for the end of the evening. And at the last presentation, we will have a few closing remarks and comments. And thank you for all that came here and everyone that's participated. So we hope you will stay for that. Our first speaker tonight is Carol Cramer. Carol Cramer and her husband, Mark, moved to Sherrill from Oneida in 1974 to Kinsley Street because Sherrill was fairly equidistant to their parents in hometowns of Morrisville and Frankfort. As a niece of the co-owners of Pete and Tocker's fruit stand on Route 5, and I have to say, 1/4 of the Pete and Tocker's is in row number 3. Mary, thank you for coming tonight. And if you heard I may have said something that was not real kind about Pete, I only meant that in fun, and I enjoyed all 4 of you at the vegetable stand all my life growing up here. So thank you for being here and part of my dad's family. We really appreciate it. Back to Carol. Carol frequently visited growing up. In 1989, Carol and Mark built the house and moved with their 3 children to Cherry Woods section of Primal Ave. Carol has lived in Sherrill now for 42 years and was an educator for Madison Oneida BOCES at VBS until 2007, and then taught at Holy Cross in Oneida until 2011. The Cramers have 4 grandchildren and enjoy traveling and volunteering for various organizations. Since she has lived in Sherrill longer than any other place, Carol now considers this her home, City of Sherrill. Carol.
Hi, everybody. Well, he stole my thunder a little bit because I was going to get back at him and say, Gary, I don't get even, I get ahead. I brought her with me. I have some acknowledgments tonight. I want to thank my husband for doing the incredible PowerPoint, Sarah Getman for helping me with the archives, and various community members that I had to call to verify some confusing information. And I also have to thank Linda Evans for giving me probably one of the most complicated topics. I haven't done this much research since college, and I want to thank her because I'm now off vitamin E because all my synapses are now working properly. All right, on with the program tonight, and let's talk about the churches of Sherrill. before churches as they are today in Sherrill, and our connections to these faith communities are many. Maybe you had to get to the church on time for a marriage, just to worship, a church event, or sadly for a prayerful goodbye and funerals. Sharing our faith allows us to celebrate together or offer to support to others who need it. Today we're going to celebrate the cheerleaders who had perseverance, forethought, and wisdom to build these strong faith communities and provide Sherrill with an ecumenical environment. Eliezer Williams, aka the Lost Dauphin, Canadian clergyman and missionary who claimed he was smuggled out of France and was the rightful son of Louis XVI and therefore a French royal. This was never proven. And how is this connected? Because right here in Sherrill, this became an international topic. The Canadian records state that he was raised by Chief Thomas Williams of the Mohawk tribe of the Oneidas, and in 1815, he joined the Episcopal Church, and 2 years later was assigned to the Oneida people and confirmed 500 Oneidas to the Christian faith. Between 1785 and 1842, the land cession agreement specified money to build a church for a second Christian party living in the future Sherrill. And in 1819, that result was the church on the knoll, just north of West Hamilton Ave, which is pictured right next to Eliezer there. AKA, it became known as St. Peter's Chapel, which was moved to Vernon in 1840, used as the town hall, then raised in the 1960s and replaced by the fire station on Route 5, where there's a historical marker. Congregational Christians. In 1870, the Christians met in an old Sherrill schoolhouse at Seneca and Chapel Street. And in 1886, this Union-Free chapel held services of various Protestant denominations, and pastoral leadership was by the Vernon ministers. By 1913, the group officially became the first Congregational church led by Reverend Charles Young until 1916, and services continued here until 1922. In the next slide, you see the house as it is in residence of today, which was originally owned by Clarence Johnson. The Plymouth Church construction. In 1919, the congregation was divided as to the location of a new chapel. Many members lived on the hill between Seneca Turnpike and Mud Creek. It became a very controversial local topic and became referred to as Christian Hill or Piety Hill, taken from the book Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. The lead character was Christian who had a challenging hill to climb. Eventually, it was moved to Kinsley Street as this selected location. Now, the Plymouth Church celebrated 50 years, but here's where we're going on a roller coaster ride, okay? This refers back to the 1870 Christians meeting at the house on Chapel Street. And in 1920, Reverend Charles Berger is credited for orchestrating construction of the imposing, picturesque edifice that we see right here today where we're having these talks. Theodore Skinner drew the plans, and Zingerline Contractors of Rome were hired. The name changed to Plymouth Congregational Church, and it was officially dedicated in 1922. A bell was purchased by the Bible class, and the names of the contributors are engraved in the bell's skirt. Now, in 1972, a clock, a memorial donation from Mr. and Mrs. Herbert Brewster and J. Leroy Brewster and their families, was installed. And you see the picture there of the man installing the clock. The Kenwood Church and its connection to the Plymouth Church. Theodora Campbell, the 30th child born in the Oneida community, purchased 2 lots on the corner of Cramer and Chapel Street in Kenwood Heights. No relation to Cramer Street. After returning from New York City, studying at the Christian Alliance and Missionary Training School, she orchestrated the building of a church and a parsonage. But in 1895, Dora, as she was known, decides to do missionary work in China and sells the properties to the congregation, which becomes known as the Kenwood Heights Church or the Kenwood Alliance Church. Now, Mrs. Finley brought in a photo today that dates back to 1906 and 1908, and it's on the table there. If you'd like to see it, it's a Sunday school class. Unfortunately, Dora died at age 44 during the Chinese Boxer Rebellion and was buried in China, never to return to her church. This church continued on its own until 2002. In 2002, the Kenwood Alliance Church and the Plymouth Congregational Church merged, which is now known as Plymouth Alliance Church. And here we are in this beautiful building. The Anglican worship, Gethsemane. In 1910, pistol-packing Episcopalians, say that fast 3 times. I practiced that all last night. Were two ladies intent on worshiping in the Anglican tradition. There were no Episcopalian services at the time in Sherrill, so they walked along the railroad tracks to St. John's Church in Oneida. Because of the fear of tramps along the tracks, one lady carried a pistol. Then services began in Kenwood Park School and moved to the Seneca and Chapel Street Church. From 1910 to 1917, services were conducted by a New Hartford deacon in the Plymouth Church. Now remember, here go the synapses, people. They didn't move to Kinsley Street yet. And in 1917, a Clark Mills priest changed services to people's homes and in tents until a horrible storm returned them to worship in their homes. In 1922, Bishop Fisk and Reverend Deacon Sherwood came from Westmoreland to hold services in the newly constructed Plymouth Church. So here we are back to 1922. Also that year, the Westmoreland Episcopal Church unfortunately was forced to close. The remaining communicants agreed to move the actual building to Sherrill. So the Oneida silversmiths sold the property on Park Street for $1. Despite quicksand and violent storms, a cellar was excavated. The church in Westmoreland was dismantled and rebuilt in Sherrill, and the cornerstone was laid July 30th, and it only took 6 months to do all that. Rededication of that church was November 26, 1922, and in 1936, the first rector was installed. By 1937, Episcopalians were mentioned in a news article about Central New York worship in one of the newest cities in New York State. In 1938, the 80th anniversary celebration, here we go again, from its original 1858 inception in Westmoreland. So they celebrated it 80th. And in 1954, Gethsemane was recognized at their diocesan convention as a full parish. But in 1972, a 50th anniversary was celebrated. Now, there's math teachers in this audience. This took me weeks to figure this out. A 50th anniversary was celebrated recognizing the Sherrill dedication of 1922. So is everybody's head spinning yet? Now in 1958, the Episcopalians had another party making the completion of the church hall. And what I learned is that Episcopalians are party people. So if you want to join Gethsemane, you're going to go with a fun group, let me tell you. Now, in 1971 in July, there was a terrible storm and lightning struck the bell tower. And the neighbors said that happened at 11:55 p.m. It damaged the church wall and threw parts of the tower 40 feet away and blew out the church fuse boxes. Repairs and reconstruction to the damage obviously were done. And in May of 1977, Gethsemane makes New York State history. My good friend, to this day, Reverend Beverly Messenger Harris, still presiding today, becomes the first female Episcopal rector in New York State. Asked about her opinion of women in controversial job areas, Bev said, "If a woman has a vocational goal she feels is right for herself, she should have the right to pursue it." And I think that still holds true today. Now, I found this on their webpage and I wanted to include it because I'm thinking, after all the storms that the Episcopalians endured, the tents blown over, the quicksand in the storm, and the lightning strike, they did a lot of praying and God said, okay, I'm going to send a rainbow. Methodism. In 1911, open-air services were first known as Kenwood Park Methodist Episcopal Church. In 1912, efforts secured this schoolhouse on Hamilton Ave, and it was rented for $10 a month. By 1915 in winter, union evangelistic services were held, including Christian Alliance, Congregational, and Methodist. By 1924, a site at Park Street in Ransom was donated by Oneida Limited, but this proved to be too much money to build on this site. So the church committee asked Oneida Limited for permission to change the location, and they graciously offered the site on the corner of Park Street and East Noyes Boulevard, where it's located today. The facilities at that time included a recreation/fellowship hall. A house on East Campbell Ave was rented as the parsonage and first occupied by Reverend Benjamin Rowe and his new bride. Now, in 1924, the official dedication named the church the Park M.E. Church of Sherrill. In 1939, due to the Depression, finances were tight. So laymen from Plymouth Congregational and Park Methodist worked out a plan known as the Sherrill Cooperating Churches on a temporary basis. Services were alternately conducted between the two churches. The Depression brought financial difficulties, and at this time, as you heard in a previous lecture, the Park Methodist Church rented the recreation hall to the Sherrill Press and the Condé Milking Machine Company. But this was interesting. During World War II, the hall was taken over by the United States government and made into 5 apartments. And the parsonage on East Campbell was sold and proceeds went to help the church. By 1966, the membership voted to withdraw from the cooperating churches and to reorganize as Christ Methodist under Reverend Thomas. A parsonage on East Noyes was purchased and refurbishing of the fellowship hall and other remodeling was done to the church. Christ Church received another facelift under Reverend James Brand, and the new hall constructed is dedicated to and called the Condé Hall. Roman Catholicism. You know, I gotta do that, it's my people. Okay, a quote from a news article. St. Helena's Parish was born August 1st, 1917 to serve Sherrill and Vernon Catholics. Ironically, in 2008, 91 years later, we are linked parishes again between St. Helena's and Holy Family. One priest, presently Reverend William Mesmer, services both parishes. The first service was held at the home of Mrs. Rose Sweeney on West Seneca Street until the church on Primo Ave was completed, the land being donated again by Oneida Limited for the church and the rectory. In November 1917, the cornerstone was laid and the principal players were Father William Sheehan, Father James Flavin under Reverend Bishop David Cunningham. May 24th, 1918 was Palm Sunday, and the first Mass was celebrated in the new church by Father Sheehan. Official dedication was June 23rd, 1918, with Bishop Grimes officiating. November 1926, after St. Helena's mortgage was paid, a separate church, St. Catherine's, was built and dedicated in Vernon, which is now called Holy Family. In the early 30s, a 2-car garage was built, and much is credited to Reverend William Oley, who beautified the church and rectory with his gardening skills. Through the generosity of many parishioners and their donation of time, much renovation was completed in a short period of time. Now, we see a picture of the 50th anniversary of St. Helena's in 1967, Reverend James Flavin is credited for the first ecumenical service to respect all beliefs, and in August, St. Helena celebrated its 50th anniversary held in the parking lot. It was attended by members of all the Sherrill churches with an ecumenical covered dish organized by Mr. and Mrs. Harry Rosbrook and Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Riley. The dinner committee photo, and this is where I use my little tool here. Okay, that is, okay, the back row there is Rod Hornby, Walter Blader, Louis Patarelli, Fran Broski. Look at that young guy. Handsome. In the front row, Joe Clauda, Thomas Riley, Leo Rafty. Not pictured, Charlie Wright, Arthur Gilbert, and Brian Leach. In 1979, one of St. Helena's finest accomplishments came through the efforts of Father Flavin, Nick Vanderwall, and Pete Noyes, who was then the president of Oneida Limited, who realized there was a need for elderly housing. The land and site was provided for what is now Noyes Manor and continues to be an excellent senior housing facility. In 1981, Reverend John Rook, Joe Clauda, and Don Cornell were on a committee to renovate property needs, especially the church kitchen. In 1996, St. Helena gets a new hall dedicated to Reverend John J. Costello, and those of us at St. Helena's knew him as Archie, who authorized the construction under the co-chaired committee of Joe Clauda and Don Turville. And you see the Church of St. Helena's from the Primal Ave. There's the church hall, and then the next slide will be the picture as we see it today from Primal Ave. Now, what you may not have known is that at one time in 1915, the first public meetings of the reorganized Church of the Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons, were held in the Willow Place School and then moved to Marshall Street. Because it had a relatively small following, the Marshall Street building was given to the Masons for their lodge. Today, it is the Marshall Street Apartments. In 2015, if you go by Route 5, in the Dance from the Heart building, you will see a sign that says, the Transformed Life Christian and Full Gospel Church. This is our newest congregation in Sherrill. Now, this next picture. Okay. You're wondering, what's this got to do with the church? I call this ecumenical chefs. To prove that ecumenicalism continues in Sherrill, because we have, left to right, Dr. Robert Pickles, Brian Carroll, and Dwight Evans. 2 Protestants and a Jew cooking for Catholics. Does it get any more ecumenical than that? And to show again the ecumenicalism here, we have all the churches listed and their pastors: Christ Church United Methodist, Reverend Robert Colvick Campbell; Gethsemane, Reverend Beverly Messenger Harris; the Plymouth Church, Pastor Kurt P. Johnson; St. Helena's, Father William A. Mesmer; and the Transformed Life Christian Church, Reverend George Nunley. So you have many, many choices from which to choose from to worship here in this beautiful city. Lastly, I want to leave my community members with this message for the future, especially today, in honor of the state of Florida and the horrible situation in Orlando. I leave you with: share faith, offer prayer, and gather hope for the future. Thank you.
they're getting Al hooked up over here, I'll do his introduction. Before we start, we have a big crowd tonight. If you worked in any capacity under Al at Sunset Lake or Sherrill Pool, please stand up. I should go down again. I was there 7 years. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 out of hundreds, probably. So lots came tonight to hear you talk. Thank you. Al Glover graduated from BBS in 1960. He went to work in 1960 for United Limited and retired with 42 years of service. After retirement, Al worked 6 years part-time for Access Federal Credit Union. Al worked 11 summers at Sunset Lake as a lifeguard and assistant director. In 1970, he became the director of the Sherrill City Pool. He continued as director and assistant director for the next 43 years. He also taught life-saving courses each summer. How many of us took the life-saving or taught them? During the years, Al was active with the youth of the community. He began the minor league baseball program and he took over the youth bowling program at the CAC. The leagues grew from 1 to 4. Al was active with the youth center at the CAC. Under his direction, he supervised the teens as they organized the Halloween parties at McAllister Elementary and became Santa's helpers, answering letters. Al also coached the VBS Independent Girls Swimming Team for 3 years. Al has been a member of the American Red Cross for over 50 years, teaching CPR, first aid, AED, lifeguard instruction, and a member of the local Red Cross board. In 2003, he received the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Red Cross for his dedication to the Red Cross. Al is a member of the board of the Sherrill Kenwood Fire Department. He was also an EMT and firefighter. Al is a member of the Plymouth Alliance Church in Sherrill. He has been active with the youth and sits on the ministry board. In May 16, 2014, Al was awarded the Norm J. Reed Legacy Award for making a positive difference in the community. On June 25, 2015, the city of Sherrill proclaimed the day as Al Glover Day. The city renamed the pool the Al Glover Pool. Al has been married to Cindy for 46 years. They have 2 children, Leanne and Lang, and son-in-law Tom, and granddaughters Emily and Mackenzie. There they go.
The mic is on. I asked for a chair because I think I'm one of the oldest presenters. I'm here to prove the theory that they don't save the best to last. Ever since Linda asked me to do this talk, I've been nervous about it. And with the help of my great wife, we got a whole bunch of stuff out. As you can see out front, when you leave, take something, please. And my wife will say, please, please. But you know, wife, I'm thinking of the last speech with the churches and everything. My wife and I were one of the first ecumenical weddings over there in that church. And it's like a church story. I belong to this church, we do. And I think of all the other things that's happened. I got to be on the stool over there on the picture on the wall. And right next to me is a pastor. I'm going, what's going on here? You know, am I being followed by, you know, the man upstairs and make sure I'm in line? But anyways, we'll get to the speech, but I'm going to ask you all to, on your watches you have a stem, you know, you pull it up and the watch will stop. Pull it up. I called the local store this morning and I asked if anybody bought any old rotten tomatoes. Because I didn't know what was going to happen. And they said no, so I said, but we'll get going here. Sunset Lake. The picture up there should be, well, I should turn here. And if I turn, I gotta be able to see both. As I said one time, I love the saying that Victor Borge used to have, pardon my front, pardon my back, but that's just the way I'm built. Okay, in 1901, what was called the Sunset Lake Project was at the time intended as a storage reservoir to improve the water power for the Silk and Fruit House. The bed of Oneida Creek, which meandered through a meadow just west of the O&W Railroad, was roughly the boundary. The dam at the head of the lake was to provide the water power. And oddly, was voted to stock the lake with fish. And I can prove that. Someplace over here I got a water. Before the year was out, a disastrous flood overflowed the creek into the new lake, broke through its walls and left it as empty, as before it was built. Sherrill Pond was carried away by the flood, as well as many properties in Oneida. The angry citizens threatened to sue Oneida Limited until it was proved that their flooding by the creek occurred more than 2 hours after Sunset Lake burst its banks. In spite of zero cold weather, repair work with sandbags was begun immediately by a man named Jack McQuaid and his men, but completed repairs had to wait for spring. Pictures. I just found out today, right here, that is a postcard dated 1906, and I just found out today, Mr. Lampman came up with a postcard so can you use this? I said, I got it. The thing of it is, he had the year on the back. So we know that is 1906, and that is the old dock area right in there. And this is the area they used to have. As early as 1911, swimming instruction was under Grandpa Herrick. And then Grandpa Herrick taught some of the first lessons in 1911. He constructed the first crib, 30 square feet on the edge of the lake, and it also had built 2 bathhouses. As early as 1917, instruction under Professor Martin, Sunset hosted large swimming meets for children as well as adult-age women and men. Named back then, the women were Vera Wallace, Mrs. A.N. Kinsley, Mary Ackley, Edna Ronsby. Men's names, George Kittendahl, Art Lang, Dick McCabe, Paul Jones, Ray Walker. And we have a gentleman that lived down the road down here. There's a picture coming up soon. His name was John Berry, related to the Jollies and the Stanhope and everything here. He was one of the first lifeguards. In fact, I think the picture says that he was a lifeguard 52 years ago, and the picture was taken in 1969. So you can figure he was there in 1917. Okay, picture 3, 4, and 5. Okay, here we go. See some of the old areas in here, the docks, the things they had used. Next picture. Look at here, first crib. I want you to remember that area right there. That's the old float. Our lame story about that old float was him and Dick McCabe used to go out at night, run to Oneida after the pool or lake closed, and they'd have an ice cream or something, milkshake. They come back one night, and there was lights all over the area, lit up, and what was going. So they stopped and checked it out, see what was wrong. Turns out a man, they coaxed this man into swimming out to the dock in the water, the float, and he didn't want to swim back. He was afraid. And what happened is the man dove in, and he never come up. And when Art Lang got there, him and Dick, Art asked what was going on. They said the man was down. They hadn't found him yet. Art went in and made two dives. Second dive, he had the man. That's the only known for me. Other people might know. of people who had drowned, but that was in unsupervised hours at night. And heavens, but you know, us, we wouldn't do that at night. Got one more ahead there, Mike. Oh, here we go. Diving fundamentals. Anybody know who that guy is right there? Art Lang. Jack's going to answer every question here. I didn't prompt him or give him any notes. He just, I said, Jack, sit up front in case I need help. Well, we're going to get it. So later, Professor William Mensch, high school AD over here, remember, worked summers at the lake, became the director of the lake with Art Lang and Dick McCabe as instructors. The three were there for many years. Art Lang became became a director in the 40s with Dick as lifeguard along with Barb Law, Don Lane Graves, Doc Collins, Joel Comfort, Peggy Reams, Giles, we also met Bob Duncan, Wally Glasgow, Harry Dutcher, Lois McCabe, and Chuck Lang. Many of you people know these names. You're related to them or something. You know, and great people. So, but I got a note, ad-lib, drawing float. I did that. But the thing here was that, you know, you talk to Wally, when Wally was feeling good, he had good stories, you know. Art Lang, if anybody didn't know, Art Lang used to be a boxer. He taught boxing. And he had some fighters that were really good in the area and stuff. And you go up to Art and square off to him, he'd hit you twice in the face, lightly, before you could move. You know, I mean, what a role model Art Lang was. He was a great man. Dick, every day, he'd come to work in his green Ford Fairlane, drive in, toot the horn, go down to first crib, park his car, sit there and wait to go on guard duty. And when he had breaks and stuff, he'd sit in the car, eat a sandwich, and he always ate tomatoes like they were apples. And I always cringe at that. I love tomatoes, but I can never eat one like that. The next one, we have pictures here. I like this news article here. It had quite a few things in here about, you know, different things that went on at Sunset, who was running it and why. And they talk about the instructions. They talk about, you know, one time, whatever time, I don't know the date of this one. A few weeks ago, under supervision of Lawrence J. Carlin, Bunsville's game protected lake was cleaned and quantities of carp removed. They did that, I think, in the 50s again. I watched them do it. It was neat. DEC had a little run boat with wires out in the water with a battery. They used to stun the fish. Didn't hurt them, stunned them. And they would take carp. They were getting the carp. And the DEC people couldn't say enough about Sunset Lake with a number of bass, perch, pickerel. It was a great fishing spot. It still is today. But the thing is that they cleaned it again. Oh, and with that carp stories, they filled a truck full of carp. They took the carp over behind the 9/11 and buried them. All but two. And those two carp ended up in Joe Austin's pool. The two guys who did it were named Steve and Carl. I won't tell you their last names. Now, when we'll keep going, there's the old tower. The old tower, there's the train station, okay, here. But look at the wooden tower. Tell you that was something. Keep going. You know where that is? First crib. All right, everybody gets A on that one. You can tell how old it is. Look at I had it in tape. But the year I couldn't tell you. Now, Jack, can you name everybody there? Okay, we got them. Okay, oh, here's one here. There's Bill Lynch right here, and this is Lois McCabe, Dick's daughter. Jack, who's that? Anybody know who it is? We're trying to figure out who it is. Okay, next one, please. There's the tower. Look at this board right here. You'll wonder, why did they have that board there? Well, sometimes the kids would go off backwards. And when you go off backwards, you have a tendency to put your body forward, and that was there to stop them from hitting the land, sliding in the water. Now, the newer diving board is up in here, but there's the other diving board they used to have over here. Now, if I had to guess what that was, I'd say Harry Dutcher. No, Harry Bird. Well, if he was on a diet, that could be Harry. I'm not picking on Harry. Harry's a nice guy. We had a lot of fun with Harry. In fact, one day I came out of the bathhouse. We were cleaning up to go home that night. And he goes, "Hey, Ma," Claire Lane, his wife. He goes, "Watch this." He puts his toe into the waistband of his bathing suit, and he stretches it up to his nose. And he goes, "Guess who this belongs to?" But Harry was a character. Next one. There's the old boat dock with a wooden boat, not, we were modern, we had aluminum. That's probably an early form. There's a tower more up to date. And right over here, that's what we call skid dock. Kids used to get, when the paint used to wear down, they used to run and slide on that dock and go in the water and everything. So that's changed a little. 1963, we moved the guard Sherrill over there, right next to skid dock. There's the diving board, of course. That flag you see out front, don't holler at me and tell me I gotta go have it burned, but I have the last flag that was flown at Sunset Lake. There's more pictures. You know, any one of these pictures, you could probably find a Lucy. Any one of them, you know. There's more tower pictures. Keep going. Joe Beerworth, he ran the concession stand. And that's Dick McCabe right there. Guy was sharp, nice guy, older guy. He knew what was going on. Like I say, when he broke for lunch, he had his tomato and sandwich, or his shinny out on first crib, and you'd see him fishing there during the lunch hour. Always catching something. There's Art. I get chills, I'm sorry. There's, to me, a role model. Wow, what a role model. I'm in awe of this man. Our son is named Lang after him and Clara. We're proud of that. Next. There's a slow day at Sunset Lake. I know. That's what it looked like. Okay, next. Later on in the years, the diving board. And he used to say one on the board at a time. But you know how the kids listen in one ear, out the other. Out in front of this diving board, out in front, remember what was there? What? The stump. You used to go out there and, you know, you'd ask somebody, "Can I go out and stand on the stump?" It was only maybe 30 yards out. But you had to line up with trees and the smokestacks and knife plant and the diving board, and you'd measure and go, "Should be here." You put your feet down, you were there. It's just an old tree trunk that was out there. They used to have Freddie Evans come in the springtime. Freddie did scuba work. Freddie would go around the lake just looking for things, pick things up and make sure everything was okay to swim. One year he found a pipe just out in front of this diving board, stuck in the mud, angled up. That was scary. So we had Fred there to help us out. Keep going. Oh, now, Jack, can you pick out your bike? Can anybody pick out their bike? Hey, Wag, can you pick out your bike? Okay. Slow day of sunset. You know, second crib, we extended the third crib over here after a while. I mean, we had people, I mean, from all over. Next, oh, these are our bathing beauties. Anybody know who they are? The Yanks are in the holla. That's a Thurber girl. That's Chris Bush. And I'm trying to think who else is in there. But we had one young lady. If I had to say anybody swam like, who's a famous swimmer there? Esther Williams. We had an Esther Williams in my feeling. This girl was a beautiful swimmer. We had good swimmers, great swimmers, whatever. But this girl right here, and she is sitting right there. Her name is Claudia. She was a beautiful swimmer. Then we had Linda Evans. One time Linda Evans, once she learned breaststroke kick. Well, she's laughing already. Breaststroke kick was in everything. Her crawl stroke, you look at it going, why aren't you doing flutter? She was doing breaststroke. I think she did breaststroke when she was sleeping. And by the way, this painting right here was done by Linda. And we're going to have an auction at the end of the ceremony. Opening bid, $1 million. Okay? That picture right there is going to be 47 years old. In 16 more days, we will have been married 47 years. And that was given to us as a wedding gift right here. And I think Linda's tried to sneak in the house a couple times to get it. But I've had the dog there to bark at her. Okay, next. The tower again. It was a great place. Once you went up the tower, you were not allowed to go off. You went up, you went off. Many kids, and no one's wrong with it, they walk down, they hurt your feet. You know, and everything. We had a girl one time, she was on a bus student. She was probably 11 or 12. She had on a yellow bathing suit. She went up, she got a heavy set, and these kids coaxed her to go off. You're supposed to jump off. She leaned forward, and she come down in that water just as flat. I was up on the railing here, ready to go get her, and I just talked to her, you know, crying and hurting and everything. Excuse me, she was fine. She got out over here. And all I can think of, I told people, she looked like a creamsicle. You know, it's funny what she heard. The front of her was all red. You lift up her arm and she was white in the back. That hurt. Next. Okay, more pictures just later on in the year 60s and so. That diveboard got a lot of use. It was over, I think it was 40 inches, 39, 40 inches off the water. So it was not quite a meter, just over a meter. Next. This here, I wish I had some dates. This is when they had swimming races. And they had this as their starting platform. Okay? I don't know who that is right there. But that goes back quite a few years. Now I'm trying to figure out where did they swim to? You know, if they started at second crib, where did they swim to? Modoc? There's another dock. They're good old pictures. Next. Oh, here we go. We got more bikes all around. That's the outtake right there where the water went out. Okay, again. Okay, this is one of the last life-saving classes at Sunset Lake. Mike Burns, Claudia Boyd, there's Smilo, Duchesne, Bill Peak. Good old Wendell. I think Joe Andrews is in there. I'm not sure. But I think that's the Graves girl right there. I used to know them all, and now I really have to think. Good times, good people. Oh, that's a foreign people that they introduced. They had this picture on a milk carton, he was lost. Next picture, please. That is the last staff of Sunset Lake. And let me tell you, these people were great. If I worked with 150 people over the years, I'd work with 146 of them again. There's only 3 or 4 that I had trouble with. They didn't like me, they didn't like the way I did things, but that's all right. You know, when they were on guard duty, we watched them because they got a little too lax. We had a lifeguard one time. I do not like shaded glasses, sunglasses. We had lifeguards back when was scouting second crib, and we watched them. And I called the guards over and said, watch him. You sit there and they, well, what you doing? You know, but we caught them on that one. But these are all super people. And we lost 1, 2, 3 out of that group I know of. You know? Who are they? Dorian Cragen, Steve Peak, Richard Henderson, Megan Jones, Bill Peak, Scott Duchesne, Nancy Henderson. That's Maud. Dick's over there laughing. He remembers, that's Maud. Rosbrook. Joe English, Linda George, yours truly, Mike Burns, Jill Lauren, Wendell Wild. People used to harass Wendell because he had long hair. You know, we were back in the flower power age something, and they used to pick on him because he had long hair. We used to laugh at him. A great guy. Nice staff. You know, you can't get any better. Okay, next one. That's our Blake. That's where you see me swimming. You know, on that title too, I wanted to rename that title. And a lot of you will understand what I'm saying because you've heard it. Is that you take your kids by it, your family people you take by the lake and you go, that's where I learned to swim. And the answer was, you learned to swim in there? They used to have kids coming up, and they'll tell you, the ones that work there, especially the boys, they would go down and grab the clay off the bottom, bring it up to the dock, coat their bodies in clay. You know, and the staff, they will tell you, we know what was going to happen. They jump in and wash it off. Not clay. You get it rinsed off and they come back and they go, they're all great. You know, and it's, oh, well, go in the shower, all the time, boys. Go in the boys' shower room and there's some soap in there and it'll come off. The funny thing about it is the soap was pumice soap. Now they went from gray to red. And they edged a little. They never did it again. Never did it again. So, okay, want to start? I think we're, well, I'll tell you one story. We'll start Sherrill Pool next. But stories I got, I've enjoyed going over them in my mind, and like I say, Cindy was there to help me at every second. But the stories are, we had an old tree by second crib, and one day I hid behind it. Well, I got behind it. And I'm looking at the guard going, like that. And he's going, I said, look. He looked and here's this great big water snake coming right at second crib. And nothing more in the world. I don't like the word hate, but I just like snakes a lot. He's coming for second crib, so we got the kids out of the crib. Snake come up the side of the crib, went up on the dock, and went up the railroad bank. You know, I let him go. If I had a weapon, he wouldn't have lasted long. So again, like I said, I got a lot of stories about Sunset, good, bad, and different, and it carries over. When we had a staff there, we had days when you earn double your money, triple your money. Then there's days like today, you know, you have to put on your sweats and wrap yourself in a towel and go find a book or food or go to the dairy parlor. And now you go for pizza. But you know, just day after day, it was amazing. And these instructors and guards were not only there for safety reasons, they were there for these kids. These kids come up and tell them these heartbreaking stories about their friends, about their family. They were sick or whatever they were, and you see these guards hugging them and talking to them and everything else. And for the longest time, we used to tell guards, you're going to have kids hanging on the side of your bathing suit. They're going to be your buddies. They're going to be everything to you. But you know, you got a job to do. And I said, there's days, like I said, about earning more money than they're worth, you know what they got paid. But I said, wait till the end of the year. At the end of the year, you get these little cards. You get little homemade cookies. You get little, whatever they are. I got a rubber tomahawk that's 40 years old. A girl brought me one time. I still got it. I got notes and cards and letters from people that, you know, they're going. We used to get cards from scout camp, church camp, all these camps about how good the kids were swimming when they knew they were from Sunset Lake and now the pool. And that's quite a performance for the people working, you know. Okay, but I'll finish up the lake up to and including 1968. Sunset staff was paid by a night limited. In the early years, some of the employees like Art and Dick would work at Sunset, and then the company would employ them over at the factory. Bill Mensch worked as the AD over here at the high school. In the summer, he was hired to run the lake. So Art and Dick were under Bill. And I think we're through the pictures. But in 1969, the city of Sherrill took over Sunset, 1969, from private to governmental. Water testing. We had the water test every week. We had to put chlorine in Sunset Lake. And it was done by vote, first grid, sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. It didn't do much. We had to put in alum to keep the weeds down and stuff. And the weeds just kept on growing. The weeds act as a filter, really. You go over there and take those weeds and put on your hand and they're all mud. So they filter out the mud. But the fun part of it was weekly tests. We would take a test of water where the water come in from the creek, and in the outtake, we would take a water sample. And they always went to a Nina hospital to be tested for the county. So one weekend, one Friday, this guard, I won't say his name, took the water sample. On Monday, he said to the boss, Pete DeStefano was the director then, did the results come back about the water test? No. He says, why? Because I want to show the staff what the results will look like and where they come from, just whatever. An hour or two later, Pete, the samples come back. He goes, no, what did you do? Me? Would I do anything? 2 hours later, he holds up the papers, go down and look at it, and it read, unfit for drinking, unfit for recreational use. That water sample, I'm confessing, that water sample was taken from the drinking fountain. And I won't tell you who did it. But that just shows you back then, you know, they were talking pools. So, hey, Sunset Lake, stamp. You know, back then, that's the way it was done. Stories, cleaning the intake, the night clamp for the fire protection. We used to have to clean the intake over there. It wasn't bad, silt was built up in mud. You just go down there and go under water and scrape it out. But the outtake pipe, the 24 to 36 inch pipe, I never seen him do it. So I heard the story over again. Dale Harmon, little guy, worked for the fire department. They used to hire him to go down that pipe. So I went from where the outtake was by the concession stand, down underneath the trestle, and where you see the water come out there, that's how far it was, probably 50, 60 feet or so. But he used to go in the pipe. No thanks. 1911, he had one crib. Now there was 3 lightning strikes. We've had a couple of behind the island. You know, we all know where the island was. Lightning struck there one day, and the kid was getting a drink out of the drinking fountain, which water wasn't any good. He got knocked down. And we figured it was from that. One time, the lightning hit out in front of the trestle and hit a transformer. And one of the guards, her name was Dot, was sitting on the ice cream machine. She got knocked off that ice cream machine. Shock went right through. So, you know, he had things over there that he had to watch out for. Of course, when it rained and thunder and lightning cleared the lake, you know, and then when the storm was gone, a couple people would go out and fish. Sure like them fishing trips. That was fun. In the 40s and 50s, the kids would wave to the trains that passed, go by, and the kids would all stand there and wave, and he'd toot the horn and everything, and what have you, but I remember that train. Then they had the concession stand. Now, what was the greatest food at the concession stand? You hear that chorus? Frozen milkshake. And one day, Mrs. Lang asked me into the concession stand, and I had to put sticks in the Milky Way. I thought that was the greatest job in the world. And she told me how to do it. You gotta do it just right. Those milkshakes, they last you, what, 2, 3 hours? Maybe. Depends how good your teeth were. Scary stories. We had one day we were checking kids coming off a bus. No supervision at the dock. 2 Hofmeister girls were at the dock area, one was in the water. And I heard her say, as I was going out to the bus, I think she's drowning. So when you're in your workplace, you're alert to words you hear. Everything, you know? And I looked out, and there was 2 girls in the water, so I went out to tell them they got to get out of the water until you get a guard. One of the girls wasn't moving. So I ran out to the dock, told Connie, give me your hand. She was just a short distance away, and I had to scream at her. I might have swore, I don't know. But the thing is, she gave me her hand. I lifted her up out of the water. Probably 12, 13. Her head just went, just like that. I remember that. I dream about it. I think about it. Got her up on the dock. Her face was down on the dock. We rolled her over, all artificial respiration procedures. We raised her, put her up on her forehead, tilted her head back, and it was like a Walt Disney movie. And they'd take a paintbrush, and the color of the paint was flesh. And right down her body, you could see the color come back to her body. It was amazing. And she starts coughing and choking. Much relief that day, much relief. We don't know what happened. We think she just blacked out in the water. But again, a close call. And thank God there was somebody there to see that. But that was probably one of the scariest stories. You know, I told you about the Cramer story and stuff, but these are all good times. The end of the era, no more dropping your kid off at 12:45 as you're going back to work and picking them up at 4:45. We were babysitters. What job that doesn't work with kids is babysitting, you know? We didn't mind it. We enjoyed it, you know, and everything, but it's funny. Because at 4:30, you see them getting out of the water, getting their towels, and start heading out front. And that's what they did for many years. And let's go to the new swimming hole. Sherrill Pool, 1970 to present. A committee was formed in 1968, headed by Bob Graham, with Dwayne McCann as secretary, Wendell Wild, Bill Hall, Don Torville, Ernie Getman, and Peter DeCox. Much controversy shrouded the building of the pool. A group of 40 mothers. Okay, right there, it says 40 mothers. Headed by Mrs. Wendell Wild, spearheaded a campaign for the building of the pool. The resolution to build a pool was finally passed in January 1969. Out of the 500 questionnaires sent out, 240 were returned, 174 said yes, 30 no, 35 were undecided. That's one of the quick surveys they did. In August 1968, a vote was taken for a bond investment of $94,000 to build a city pool. It was defeated. 427 to 172, almost a 3-1 margin, voted down. In March 1969, another vote for the building of the pool came before the voters. And United Limited donated $42,500 towards the pool, and the city would receive $88,500 in state aid. So that's one of the things here about why we should have a pool. The one before that was people ran an ad, full-page ad, that one right there, about why we shouldn't build a pool. So there was great controversy. The biggest meetings they've had at City Hall have been on dogs, have been on the new police chief, and the other one was a pool. When they had the pool meeting, they had to move it over to school, because there were so many people. Okay. Right here, Dwayne McCann. Thank my lucky stars for that man. He was the secretary of the committee. That's John Berry. And in that article, it tells how he was a guard 52 years ago at Sunset. But we were, things like, you know, I want to say, the pool itself. But before the vote, on March 69, United Limited offered to contribute annually $10,000 for their operation and maintenance of the pool. The vote passed, 520 to 391, to issue a bond in the amount of $54,000. That money that United Limited put in, the vote was on Tuesday, and United Limited had it in the paper on Monday. So things swayed. The pool committee reported tax increase of 63 cents per thousand for assessed valuation during the 10-year bond. Work began on the pool in June 1969 by Paddock Pools, the committee for the pool received several designs, and I can remember talking to Dwayne McCann about, at Sunset, you had the beginner pool. You had second crib, so we had the beginners separate from the more advanced swimmers. And he took that and ran with it, and he came up with the pool concept. And for years, the city manager would tell me, Jimmy Roy and stuff, when dignitaries or whoever come to Sherrill, one of the first places he took them was over here to the pool to show them the nice facility that we had. So I thank them. And by the way, the pool opens tomorrow. And the thing is, I want to say it's merit site, they just refinished the bottom of the pool. Please, people, get your kids, grandchildren, those aqua shoes. Every year we go through Band-Aids, Band-Aids, and Band-Aids because of the toes and stuff. Sunset Lake, we had fingers like that because the docks they hung on to, they rub their fingers and they sandpaper. So just a warning, if anybody wants to make a lot of money, invent something they can put on their feet other than aqua shoes, you'll be a millionaire. The construction of the bathhouse was awarded to A&F Construction out of Canastota, designed by Ecker, Klepper, and Hahn. Total cost of the pool was a mere $184,750. Okay, pictures 5 through 10. These are different pictures of the building of the pool. Okay? That stuff right here, that's gunite. That's cement, sprayed on cement. Next. That's a finishing picture there. Next. That's mirror site, what they're doing here. And they just redone both pools. Which should be a lot better shape. But again, watch them feet. Next, here we are filling it. There's the tower, the high board. And by request, somebody wanted to know how high the high board was. It was 100 feet. The young lady thought it was 100. It was only 14 foot. And when you got up there, it was a long ways down. I think I worked at Sunset 2 or 3 years before I went off. How long did it take you, Dick? Forever. There you go.
You get up there, you were safe because they touched the tower. They had to come up after.
They had to come up after you. So you were always safe, huh? This is an aerial view of the pool, okay? This is Robertson Park. No tennis court, no noise banner. So that goes back 1969. Next one. Okay, pool dedication. And June 28, 1970, the pool was dedicated to Art Lang, Dick McCabe, veteran swimming instructor at Sunset for 30 plus years. This picture here, there's Jim Graves here, myself, Mrs. McCabe, and Mrs. Lang, and good old Pete Noyes. Okay, they dedicated it to Art and Dick. Well, that was well earned. Next, the first staff. It looks like the leftover from Sunset. There they are, right there. We used to pick on this one right here, man, all the time. All the time. At Sunset, during noontime, we had break, lunch break, no swimming. And there was this cute blonde who would be swimming out beyond third crib every afternoon. And so one day I asked the staff, what is she doing every afternoon? Well, she was doing her birthday suit swim. Of course, in Sunset Lake, everybody could be a birthday, you wouldn't see it. Okay? So one day, one guard, and I won't say his name, snuck up on the railroad tracks, come down through the bushes, trying to hide behind a tree light, and I took off, running down Third Crib, and I got to the buoy before she did. And I'm going, look what I got. So she was screaming bloody murder. But it was just one of those fun days we had. One day it was raining out, nobody was there, and I guess the girls didn't want to be picked on anymore, and they're all in the girls' room, and they're talking. Somebody, I don't know who it was, got the idea to take out the microphone and had a long cord, dropped it over the top, and all the male guys are sitting out there listening to the conversation. Not only there, but we found out later, a couple of golfers said, what was going on over the lake? There's a lot of people talking. We did have fun. Okay, the first staff, okay, I can't say enough about these people. Can't say enough. The ones that were there in the 50s, 60s, and ones before probably were the same way. Giles could tell you, Joel could tell you. One day I was screaming at Joel out in front of the concession stand, and I was being a typical 12-year-old, 13-year-old white guy. Joel, come and get me. Come and get me. He came and got me. He jumped right over the wall. And I learned the lesson that day, okay? For me, I passed that lesson along. So, and I swallowed probably 1.5 gallons of water that day. The pool dedication, first staff, like I say, you can't beat them. Can't beat them. I was fortunate to work with all 7 Rosbergs. You know, I enjoyed that. The hardest thing about working with the Rosbergs, every spring, 3 times, I'd have to get my hair cut. Yeah. Linda's coming home from college this year. Yeah. John's coming home from college this year. Yeah. Chris, John, Pete, Joel, Fred, everybody. You know, I never got a deal on my haircut. But I found out from listening to one of the speeches that all the Rosbergs, I guess, work for Paul Noyes. So I got to get in line with Paul on having all the Rosbergs. But I taught every one of the Rosbergs, you know. So for me, that's a pyramid or something in my life. You know, a nice family, great young people. A couple of them were crazy, but we won't say which one. On the diving board, the high board here, one day, this lady comes over. She lived right near the pool. I saw her coming. I just got off the guard chair, and I walked over to the fence, started talking to her. Here comes this little runt. Let's call him Mike. Anybody know Mike? A kid named Mike? He goes up to high board. He's only about that. And this lady goes, yeah, the little kid's going up, you're going on the board, you're going on the board. And I'm going, God, please, let him do a 1.5. Let him be scared. She's one of the women that voted against the pool. Doesn't Mike do a 1.5? The woman almost had a heart attack. And I said, don't worry, that's a Lucy. You know, they're all half fish. So, you know, and I worked with all the Dick family, all the boys. In the Shoe family, oh, I had all of them. You know? And we had all the Graves family, most of them. I was surprised none of them became guards, other than, you know, their mom and what have you. Some of the crazy things that went on at the pool. Scary stories. One day, pool was closed. Everybody was out except 2 girls. And this girl comes out to me and says, Alan, quick. Kathy is stuck. Stuck. There's only 2 kids there. The staff is in the staff room. And I'm going, hurry, you gotta help her. And I'm going, oh no. She's in the bathroom and she's probably by the toilet and and I'm going, so I ran in and I saw her at the other end of the building. And what we have is we have a vertical and a horizontal handicap bar there. This girl, 15, 14, had climbed up on the horizontal handle bar. She's looking out to see if her ride was here yet because of the storm. Her foot slipped inside that railing. She's hanging there. I still have dreams about that one. I ran over, put my shoulder in the backside of her, hands on her back, and I said, Tammy, go get Dick quick. Get a screwdriver. We had to take the handle off the wall that day. That was a close call. And the people, we've had pretty much 95% of the parents have been good over there. Few parents were stubborn because they knew more and everything else. But my hardest ones I had to work with, anybody here from the city commission? What's the city commission? Oh, I said, Tom, you weren't there. You weren't there. But the thing is that we had a fence, brand new pools. You know, we sit down as staff, we're talking about people in the middle between the small pool and the big pool. They stand there and put their feet underneath the fence. That's hurricane fencing. We're at the bottom and the top, it twists into sharp points. People would stand there with their feet under that fence. City, can you fix that? They did. The following year, a girl caught her foot. Several stitches in her foot. She just happened to be the mayor's daughter. Guess what? We got the fence fixed. We had lockers over it at one time. And the lockers were 3 sets, 18 in a row. And we asked the city when we had to build the lockers. That was fun. But the thing was that you put the lockers up, they were loose. I mean, as far as you put them against the wall, but they were never tied down. So we asked the city, would you tie them down? Nope, they didn't. One day a guard walks in, here's this kid laying underneath a set of 18 lockers on him. Thank God he didn't get hurt. It was crazy. And one year, we said, and it was, city knew about it, I've had it in my year-end notes, to fix the guard chairs. Ask any guard that worked at the pool and they'll tell you, they don't like that handle. As you go up the ladder to get into the chair, the handle was right in your way and everything, but nobody, we didn't like that. First crib, here we go. Small crib, pool. I'm guarding one day, and those spacers on the bottom of that chair broke. I wasn't leaning, because it's hard to lean back in those chairs. They give way. I am suspended, and I'm in whatever you want to call it, and their handrail is right there. I couldn't reach it in time. Over I went. You're 5.5, 6 feet in the air. That handle that I didn't like turned the guard chair over, and I fell on the cement. Tom Dixon? Wasn't there. You weren't there. Let me tell you, I could have owned that pool. I'll tell you, very close. I remember your sister Amy was working that day. She came over to me and said, Alan. I said, don't touch me. Don't touch me. I'm laying there. I'm trying to feel every bruise. And luckily enough, the man upstairs saved me. If that handle, I could have broken my back, my neck or anything. So, and maybe Cindy would have had a new husband. But over the years, I want to mention the directors. Of course, I had it for a while, and you can't ask. When you have a right hand and a left hand, they go together. And that man over there, Dick Henderson, I can't ask for a better friend, a better worker, a better everything than Dick. right there. Following Dick, I had guys like Scott Swayze, Scott Duchesne, and more of them. You can't ask for better people. If I left and I wanted people to take my place, these are the ones I have. And today we got John Geis is there. But the other Dick had the pool for a while, Andy Cassette, John Geis, Michelle Evans, and the current director is John Geis. He was over there a day, and I'm telling him, I said, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. But I says, you got it all. You got all the staffing, all the scheduling, all the complaints, all the parents, and all the kids that got to have certain days off. For years, we used to figure out kids take time off to do everything and anything. You know, their dedication is not what it used to be. And they're good kids. I love them all. The thing was that their ethics has changed. And I asked Andy, look at the calendar. And on Wednesday, every other week, that was the day that the least amount of subs, if any, they were all there. Do you know why?
Payday.
You got it. Payday. Payday. I had to work days one time, I don't know if it was for John or whoever it was for, and I went and got the pays. I put them in the drawer and everything. The kids come to me and they're going, do we get paid today? I said, yeah, they're here. Well, can I have mine? I said, when you're done with your shift, you can have it because you can't go to the bank because you're working and everything. But they just get mad. So, you know, it's changed a lot. 14 through 16 pitchers. Okay, Blue Carnival. You know, there's a lot of people there. We used to have fun. Kurt Zorn here, Jeff Sales. We had two guys. I used to call them Double Trouble. One was named Fuller, and the other one was Sales. I got movies at home from the pool and stuff, and somebody had them, my wife had them put into a VHS or whatever you call them things. And it was neat. And the music, it was the Beach Boys. But every time I seen them guys walk out or take the camera, I'm going, oh no. Here goes, you know, it wasn't quite R-rated, but it was, they used to have fun with that camera. One year the guys found out that the city of Sherrill had put the tower over behind the old Kinsley barn. And then they one night, I don't know how many of them were there that did it, but they carried it over through the cornfield and everything, and they put it inside the lake, or the pool. And when they come in the morning, they're all waiting for my response. I saw that and I flipped out. You know, Scott Duchesne was on top. He was baptizing it with water from Sunset Lake. We had fun. Well, the city got rid of that real quick. You know. But over the years, like I said, you know, we got kind of there. There's Kurt and Donna Zorn, right there. There's Chuck Noyes' daughter. And there's the gang. There's Dygert and O'Brien, Morris, Flagler's up in there someplace. You know, and these are the pictures, some of them I have out there. So when you leave, take something, please take. You know, if you want something for your scrapbook. I also have papers and letters from the youth center 30 years ago. And I have your names. So if I call you up someday, or if you see me waving to you, guess what? I got your letter. And the letters are written to Santa Claus. And I got them. And I got old bowling sheets and stuff in there. You know, I just give Jerry and his wife a picture of their young daughter with Sally Fishback. There's pictures back there. Again, like I say, take them.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Al.
You are more than welcome. 2003, we had a pool and sunset reunion. There's a picture over here, right here, of the reunion. Sent out 150 invitations. 86 of them responded. 90, the night of the, we had a party at the clubhouse. 90 people showed up. Old guards and what have you. It was fun, a lot of fun. But like I say, over the years, changing times, but the important thing is safety, the lessons over there. And like I say, I'm on my porch a lot. I'm a porch waver, not quite like the Queen, but, you know, I'm there. So anytime you want to stop by, chit chat, hear more stories, I'm there. If you want any memorabilia, stop by, okay? It's hard to sit here and talk about all these things, and I look at you, I'm going, oh, I know a story about him, and her, and I'm going, how can I keep my mind on this? But let me tell you, people, this is the greatest city of all. We've had good, Jack will tell you that, and Barb will tell you that too. So, two funny stories. Lady's looking at me. Her daughter hit the diving board one time, cracked her head on the board. Scott Duchesne jumped in, grabbed her. This is a diving competition we had. The girl was all right, thank God. One time her son dove in the water, and he's leaning over the side of the pool, and he's hollering at the guard in chair 4. I'm behind him in the chair. He's going, Karen, help me. I don't know how I got off. I don't know if I jumped down or walked down with her. I got over to the kid, took him out of the water, checked him out. He had a bruise on his head. And he said he was underwater and he hit the bottom of the pool. No, he didn't look too bad. I watched him walk away. He walked pretty straight. I'm back in the guard chair and I see him going home on his bike. This is a pool pest. A kid that stays hours. You know, if he could have his mother or father bring over a sandwich, he would. But he's going home, so I called up the house, talked to the mother, and said, your son's on his way home. And he hit the bottom of the pool. I went back to the boys he was with, and I had to drag the information out of them 2 boys. What did he do? No, he just said, no. They could see I was serious. What? No, he did a sailor dive in the water. I said, he did what? He did a sailor dive in the water. Now this is a tall boy, 14 maybe at the time, I'm not sure. But the thing was, he did hands on hips, head first, sailor dive. He hit the bottom of the pool. He should have been backboarded and taken to the hospital to be checked out. But he didn't want to, kids come home. What happened? Oh, nothing much. You're bleeding, but nothing much. Next day, the father's over there with a Pop Warner, and he sees me, and he's on a beeline right after me. And I could tell by his body language, I'm going to be in a confrontation here. So he come up, started to chew me out a little bit, and I go, whoa, wait a minute. I says, you were in the Navy, I think. I says, your son right there in the corner of the pool did a sailor dive. Oh, let me tell you, he changed his tone real quick. I wouldn't want to have been his son that night when he got home. He might have got chewed out. But these are crazy things that happen. People hit the board, and for the longest time, people, when the pool first opened up, we had the angles of the pool. The young kids would jump from corner to corner and try to grab the gutter to hold them up. Right here. Nose, teeth, lips. So we started putting out yellow lines. No diving or jumping in other corners. We've had things happen over the years, crazy things happen, but they've all been, we've all solved the problems. They've gone to a hospital, checked out. We had a mother one day come over, chewed me out. Something's wrong with your water. 2 boys here, they got rashes on them. And I'm like, first of all, they're not friends that I know of. I asked some mothers with that, have they been hanging around together? She said, yes. The second thing is, go go to Dr. Prado. What a great man that Dr. Prado was. He used to holler at me because I'd send people over to him. You know, so it turns out, the kids, one of the boys' fathers was creosoting doors in the backyard. The boys were in the area, creosote got on their skin, they got in the water, they got a rash. A day or two later, the mother, I see her coming in from the parking lot, and I park myself right up in front of the pool. And I'm going, what do you think of the water? You think it's bad? You know, and she said, okay. But she come after me. But you go up against these things. You know, and then ending, I want to thank so many people. I want to thank the committee here and everybody for doing their everything and what have you. And the church that I belong to, and Mrs. Cramer talking about the other churches. You know, if you don't have a church, find a church. There's nothing like a church family. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks or whatever. I got mail from everybody. Protestants, Episcopalians, Catholics, the Alliance people, and the Jewish family. I had every base covered, you know? So I appreciate, I've always said I got more step-parents in Sherrill than anybody. And I love them all, especially the mothers. You know, I knew what night they cooked such and such. You know, Percy and he could cook steak like you wouldn't believe. Mrs. Coniff, chicken mashed potatoes gravy. My other neighbor, she was Italian, pasta, mayonnaise cake. So I had good friends, but you people have either patted me on the back, smacked me in the head, pushed me, guided me, steered me, all of you, you know, and I can't thank you enough. You know, and I thank my family. I got a wonderful daughter over there and her husband, you know. Can't ask for a better son-in-law than Tom. Great guy. They got great daughters, you know, but I'm bragging, you know. And the thing of it is that I mentioned role models and everything. And one time I was quoted in the paper and I asked the guy that quoted me, word for word. I asked him to, I want you all to meet my hero, Mrs. Cynthia Glover. Would you stand up, Cynthia? I made a comment to a man one day, I got the greatest wife in the world. And I learned a lesson. He goes, no, you don't. He didn't. But I learned myself the greatest woman for me. So men, hug your wives, hug your kids, and hope you get hugged back. And remember, I live at 256 School Street. You're all welcome, you know, stop by and jibber jabber or whatever. I know I missed things, but you guys had speakers here for weeks. Tonight you had a talker. Speaker speaks from here and here. I spoke from there. But my true language is right from here. And I thank every single one of you. All of you.
Every evening after these talks, I get a whole handful of things back, and we've been cleaning out my mom's house. And one thing that we found in the very last cupboard was this little booklet here. And she had told me about this years ago when I became a tour guide at the Mansion House. And it's just this little booklet. She says, I found this booklet in the trunk of the barn at the Getsky home in Akron, Ohio. Remember, she lived in Barberton. In 1933, when I was 12 years old. My sister Ann and her husband Casper Cease bought the house. Little did I know I would one day live here. So this was a little book, if you can't see it from back there, it's on Oneida Community, that she found when she was 12. So the saving of all of this stuff, and I can tell a lot of these things that come up on the screen, I can tell her handwriting on the dates. So a lot of these things were from her vast collection. And also in this last cupboard, this is my little closing piece here. Stay here because I probably won't be able to finish. This was a letter that I found written by my brother John, who's the next after me. And she always called him Fred, called her Fred, I don't know why. This was written in April 1942, and I just took the end part of this. Luckily for me, 1992, sorry, 1992, thank you. Luckily for me, I've never lost my childhood passion for reading. I've read tons of books this winter. Among them, the 7 books you and Dad gave all of us in 1983 about the Oneida community. I can't thank you enough for your thoughtfully assembling this bundle of information about our hometown. I hope all the others sometime take the time to read through them. They explain so well why Sherrill and Kenwood are such a special place. When I left home and went to college, I always had trouble explaining where I grew up to people who would ask. There was always something that I couldn't put my finger on about Sherrill that made it very different, even from the surrounding towns and cities like Vernon and Oneida. Although the 130 years that has passed since the community was founded isn't such a long time as history goes, the original members were such a unique group and their ideals were so intensely lived that Sherrill and Kenwood could not have escaped becoming a different sort of place. And the true credit belongs to Perry Point Benoist, son of John Humphrey and the author of Goodly Heritage, who directed the company after the breakup in 1880 and guided it into the 1990s while not losing the spirit of the original community. The way Oneida Limited has always looked after its family of workers and put so much effort and money into the environment that they all lived in has resulted in a place that even to this day has a feeling all its own. All the names of the streets that I grew up on, Hines, Hamilton, Noyes, Kinsley, etc., are now connected in my mind with the people that lent their names. The book, A Lasting Spring, was especially nice to read since when I was about 14 or so, I used to go up into the apartment in the mansion house where Edith Kingsley, Aunt Edie, to some of you, lived and played her grand piano for her. She was the daughter of Jesse Kinsley, who was the subject of this book. Since I spent years running around exploring the mansion house, I knew every room that was talked about in my father's house. I can't wait to come home again and take a walk through it now that I've read all the books. It will mean so much more. How Sherrill got the way it is really quite a story. But in the end, it was very simple, if not easy thing. The people took care of each other, and that always meant more than progress, growth, or money. Hard ideals to find these days. Well, I'll be forever grateful that you and Dad had the foresight to choose Sherrill to raise your family. I don't blame you if you don't want to see it change. Maybe it never will. We can always hope. That was in 1992, 42. Okay, Gary and I thank you very much. Gary, we have a couple thank yous for people who have helped us in the church. We could not have done this without the gracious understanding of all of our people from church when I wrote the letter, because this was built by Theodore Skinner, and we thought this was the perfect venue. After a little bit of back and forth, everything was settled, and it's turned out wonderfully. We have some thank you gifts for them. Pastor Kurt Johnson, if you come down, I don't know if they're all still here. Chuck Vale, he could not be here tonight. He had another family commitment, but he's been the elder speaker a couple times. Mark Sherman up in the booth, who has led us through all of our PowerPoints and things here. Tony Barbano, who I don't think is here this evening, but he's helped us in the beginning. Matt Stevens, member of the church, who's taking care of our people who need the elevator lift. Jim Seaman and Mike Dunn, who have been our ushers, greeting people at the back door. So we thank them very much, and we have a little thank you gift for them up here. Gary will give them all to you. If we have any other comments, Al's got another one.
Another story for you. Little town of Sherrill, city of Sherrill. We have a young man over here, Pat Lucy. He had a pool dedicated to him up north. You know, I think that's neat. He must have done a lot of work for that. You know, I remember Pat here. And I think the other story I want to just say the name, Mike again. I get a phone call from this lady, mother one night. Why do we always pick on Mike? Why, you know, all the guards picked on him and everything. And I don't know where I come up with the response, but I said, ma'am, I says, when your boy leaves the house, he puts his halo on the doorknob. When he comes to the pool, we see his horns. And he wasn't any different than anybody else. And the thing of it is that when he comes back home, he goes to the doorknob, and that's what you see. And all these kids are growing up, and they've done whatever. We got 3 All-Americans out of that Sherrill pool. 3 All-Americans. Well, they're all girls. You know, the boys get to a certain point, they stop, and the girls keep going. That's a big honor for not only the pool, but the city itself. You know, I'm going to ask a funny story. We're in Penny's, Christmas time. Are you bored?
It's almost at bedtime, Al. That's it, you're not bored.
I told you to bring a sandwich.
Well, listen, are you done?
No, that's gone. I'm here. It's just funny to tell you the story. That's fun. I'm in the store with my wife, and I figured out we were married at the time, and we see 3 little kids coming at, you know, at one of these counters, and the kids are waving to me and waving to me, and I'm going, hey, Wackos, how are you? I couldn't remember their names. A lot of these kids, I had nicknames for Wackos and else. And they're going, he remembered me, he remembered me. And the mother comes over and she goes, Helen, I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. I had to explain that to my wife. Cindy, no, it's a pool. Well, I leave you with that.
For Gary and I, this has been a labor of love. We really enjoy doing this, and every place I go during the week, people say, oh, we just love the series. What are we going to do when they're over? Well, I won't be here in 50 years, and neither will Gary, so somebody else can